literally 10 minutes later.
I just gotta let my game finish.
I'll play it.
In a game. That's making a game.
Are you gonna get it?
No, it's fun.
Trust me, I have enough fractured time in my life already with Battlefield 1, Fallout Shelter, Clash Royale, and now I've gone into the awful addiction of Angry Birds 2.
What?
So, I never played it, and then I was like, I was during Christmas, you know, I got into kind of a sensitive moment there, and I was like, I'm gonna play Angry Birds. I'm gonna play Angry Birds. And now I'm like, no, I don't want to play Angry Birds. And I'm like, oh, it's so much fun. I'm like going right back into it. So no, I do not need another video game in my life. And I still haven't played the Nuka World DLC in Fallout 4. Was that? Perfect. That's exactly what I want to hear. That's exactly what I want to hear.
Sounds like music.
I wear my tie outside my t-shirt. I had to get it one.
Alright, so
We talked about basically the battle aspect.
today we're going to talk about the political aspect.
So, how is Lincoln seeing this war? Because we've talked about everything that's come in contact because of his election, but we haven't actually talked about the man himself.
Okay. One of the things Lincoln has a major problem with is the guilt. Could you imagine the guilt of realizing before you're even inaugurated, you have split the country in half, war has occurred, and you haven't even been inaugurated yet. So you haven't had the ability to make a mistake, but people are already saying, you're bad, we're leaving because of you, see you bye, okay? He's really kind of put in a really tough situation. Why do people always say he's one of the greatest presidents of all time? Is because he's put in a really, really bad situation, okay? Most presidents that have an easy economic time, you don't know them. Someone tell me one fact about Calvin Coolidge. Exactly. Okay? Exactly. Yes. There you go. Yeah. His re-election can. Do you know?
Did Calvin Coolidge? You've never heard of that? Did he take a lot of naps? There's some president I've heard about that just like slept a lot.
Yeah, I know you're talking about, but it wasn't Coolidge. I think it was,
Harriet Tubman.
anyways, Calvin Coolidge. Calvin Coolidge. The only thing we know about Calvin Coolidge, most likely, is Calvin Coolidge is the reason why people used to say it's cool. Because his election campaign was, I'm cool with Cal. And that's the only thing really that people probably even know about with Calvin Coolidge. Yeah, that's it. The other weird part about Calvin Coolidge was, didn't like to speak. He was one time at a executive dinner, and this lady's like joking with him, and she's like, oh, you're so funny. And she's like, I'm going to get you to talk all night, and we'll have a great time. And he's like, no. And then she goes, oh, I bet I can get you to say at least more than 3 words. And he always says is, you lose. Said nothing the whole night. Okay. He's kind of a weird guy. Okay. Wow, what a Calvin Coolidge tangent. Who would have called that one? I blame it on the snake. All right. So finish it and quit it.
I know it's still selling. I'm selling.
All right. So you have to get this down. This is what we already covered, okay? So he comes in with the smallest popular vote in U.S. history.
We don't have this?
No, you already did this prior, before break. A long time ago. I'm just kind of reshowing this. When Lincoln becomes president, here's his goals, okay? When Lincoln becomes president, here's his goals. He wants to do these 3 things. Reunite the South. Win the war quickly and decisively, and enact the Anaconda Plan. Something I want you to realize here, because everyone always talks about with him. Where in this equation is ending slavery? Okay, initially, he has no connection to ending slavery because he feels he does not have the authority to do so. Okay? One thing I want you to recognize here, his opinion and his belief in ending slavery changes. It changes. Believe it or not, human beings in history change their minds. I know. You're like, no. Right? Yeah.
Didn't he have
Right.
slaves at one point?
He did not. He never owned any slaves whatsoever, mainly because he was poor. He lived in a slave state. He lived in Kentucky. He was born in Kentucky, moved to Illinois, and he was a lawyer. So when people are like, oh yeah, Lincoln owned slaves. Why would a lawyer own slaves? Right? It just doesn't really make sense. That's just like when people say that Ulysses S. Grant, later to be the Union General, that he owned slaves. He never actually owned slaves. His wife's family owned slaves. He did. Because again, why would a military commander need slaves? Right? If you're a general, why would you need slaves?
They get paid a lot.
What's that?
The generals. They get-
Most military people, just like today, really don't make a lot. When you're in a general's position, you're actually making decent money, but basically from a colonel on down, you're really not making a lot of money. What's that? Yeah, colonels. Yeah, more or less like a colonel in the if you're a colonel in the infantry, a colonel in the Air Force, you're actually making a decent salary. Nothing like crazy, like you're not making like six figures, but you can actually live off of it now. Whereas, 'cause I mean, does anyone know what the average salary of a private in the infantry is right now in the United States?
300.
35.
Not even.
30.
Isn't it like 4,000 a month or something?
3.
Yeah,
32.
it's not even that. It's some, I think it's right about $26,000
A year?
a year.
Oh my god. It's like a McDonald's employee.
A car every year, that's nice.
Yeah, 26,000. Now here's the catch though. This is the nice part is you don't have to pay for food or clothing or things like that, right? But or living, but it's only 26,000 a year. Okay? Now combat pay, depending on your rank and where you're at, I think is an extra 11,000 for your tour of service on top of your 26. But think about it. If you go into a tour of duty for 9 months plus your current salary, so 26 times 11. You're still at 37,000, right? Not a lot of money.
Well, wouldn't that be not bad because you're not paying for it again?
Yeah, the thing is, the other thing is, for the most part, you're not using it, right? Because for the most part, you're only using it for most like entertainment, so it's not bad. But once you get out of it, you're actually kind of in a hole. The good part is with the Montgomery GI Bill, getting free college tours and things like that, it does actually help out. It all kind of balances out. I do think though that they definitely need to raise the salary of our military right now, just because they really haven't done it, I think since like 1985. So inflation-wise, they're really kind of off pace. All right. This is what Lincoln looked like before whiskers, and no, it's not a zombie, okay?
We get this?
Yeah. U.S. loses at the battle of the first battle of Bull Run. Confederacy solidifies as a nation, as a military, and as a government. Lincoln realizes this isn't going to be easy and starts preparing for a long time for this war. Britain tries to help out the Confederacy, and he almost has a foreign policy snafu with Britain, with the Trent Affair. Essentially what happens is this: a U.S. ship comes in contact with a British ship, finds Confederate spies on the British ship, captures the Confederate spies off the British ship, and Britain basically says, you will return them back to us, or we will have a shipping war. And Lincoln jokingly says, one war at a time, and gives them back, okay? From here on out, Britain is going to be helping out the Confederate government with military equipment, weapons, and some ammunition. France never really comes in contact with this because they even know what France is doing in Mexico at this time. Anyone know? France is actually trying to take over Mexico. And they do take them over for approximately 4 years. So France and Spain reclaim Mexico as a European territory. They're going to bring in a dictator, and in 1867, they're going to win back their freedom, Mexico. And this is why we celebrate Cinco de Mayo every May 5th, 1867, they have this big victory against the French and Spanish forces inside Mexico, forced them out back to Europe, and they reclaimed Mexican independence. Okay, all good here, guys? All good? Okay. Now, I don't want you to get this down. I want you to read this. This is what Lincoln is saying to a newspaper. My paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union. It is not either to save or destroy slavery. But at the same time, as he's writing this, he's already planning to change this war into just bringing back the South into ending slavery because he realizes he has the ability. The downside here is he needs that victory. What's the victory that gives him the ability to pass his Emancipation Proclamation? We talked about it yesterday. Not Gettysburg, before that. The one we talked about at the very end of class. Antietam. Was it a real full victory though? No. But it's just enough to give him that authority to do so. Okay? And he's going to win this victory. And let's get this done. So, Antietam gives him the victory needed to pass the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, I want you to realize this. What was the Emancipation Proclamation? Was that a congressional law? No. What is it? What do we call it now? It's something the president does.
Executive order.
It is an executive order. Okay? What is an executive order? What is an executive order? Does anyone know? It's kind of a really gray area of our country. More or less, it is a written statement that the president says we should follow. We don't have to follow, but we should follow. And because he's the commander-in-chief, he is going to make this document that is going to free all the slaves, ready for it, in the rebelling states. Okay? He's going to free the slaves in the rebelling states. What does that mean?
The Union doesn't have to.
The Union side, the states that did not leave the South, or did not leave for the Confederacy, those states get to keep their slaves for now. He's only going to free the slaves within the Confederacy. But here's the catch, and this is what kind of makes things even more complicated. Does the Confederacy recognize Lincoln as their leader at that time? No. Okay? So how does these slaves get free? The Union Army, as they take over the Confederate territory, are going to free these people. Okay? And so it's going to take time. Approximately 100,000 slaves on January 1st are going to be freed immediately, okay, by law. Then, as the Union Army takes more and more territory over the Confederacy, more and more slaves are going to be freed, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to get this down. This is the Emancipation Proclamation. So what does it do? It frees all the slaves in the rebelling areas of the country, also known as a Confederacy, to the South. The territories that were already taken by the Union Army, those slaves will be free. Here's the big catch, and this is what's really going to help him throughout the remainder of the war. Any free or former enslaved African American can now fight in the Union Army. Now, if you're a freed slave, why would you want to fight for the Union Army?
Free other slaves?
Yeah, the more land you free, or the more land you take over, the more.
Okay, so you've got to push that I can free more people of my heritage. That's one big one, okay? What else? Well,
If the South were to win, then they could, reestablish slavery, through the entire country.
great. I want to make sure slavery dies. Absolutely. Okay, that's another big reason. Why else?
Family.
What's that?
Maybe
Free your family. That, absolutely, right? Ethan.
Oh, like revenge?
What's that? Revenge. Wouldn't it be great to kill a slave master? They're like, heck yeah, okay? He's getting a bayonet in the chest, right? So you kind of see it. Family, freeing everyone, simple revenge, okay? These are all major aspects. The other thing is this. After they free all the slaves, okay, at this point they're thinking it's going to happen,
if the Union Army wins, slavery is going to be done. It's going to be ending, okay? Don't you want to prove to yourself and to your country, your new country, that you are a loyal citizen? And how do you do that? Military service, okay? So they're proving to the white American South, or I'm sorry, the white American North, that we have the guts and the ability to be upstanding U.S. citizens. And so with all of these aspects, okay, with all of these aspects, the Emancipation Proclamation becomes the game-changing document. Okay? This changes everything. Because now this war goes from bringing the South back to now we're going to bring the South back and forever end slavery. Now let's look at this one more way. Why does Lincoln want to do this? What is he taking away from the South?
Economy.
He's destroying their economy. Absolutely. He's destroying their economy. If you have no workforce, can't make anything. And so that's the plan here. We're going to take away your workforce. We're going to destroy your economy because of the Civil War. This is one of their many punishments. Now, one of the biggest, in my opinion, one of the biggest misconceptions of this entire war is when we talk about the slave population, everyone makes it sound like the white population frees them, okay? And the black population is working on a slave plantation, and then one day they find out they're free, right? And the white people, like, appear in the plantation, like, hey, you're free now! And the slaves are like, what? We're free now? Yay! Right? They know what's going on. They definitely know what's going on. And the majority of these slaves, the moment they find out about this proclamation, they're gone. They're going up north. Okay? And they are trying to actually fight for their freedom directly and causing these huge upheavals and revolutions inside the South itself. So the moment this happens, the South's economy just goes topsy-turvy. Okay? I don't want you to get this down, but I want you to kind of just read through this. 61 to 62, slaves are escaping and fleeing to the Union Army. They're going to be put in contraband camps, which basically is camps for free slave population. 1863, they're now allowed to fight. And by the end of the war, there's over 180,000 African Americans fighting for the Union Army, okay, that are helping out this Union cause, ending this war. So they almost become their own ally to the Union cause, okay? That's a big, big change here. Big, big change. This is a game changer. This is the big moment.
So did they like fight alongside Americans, or did they have?
Okay, so how it went, and this happened all the way up until the end of World War II. They were segregated. Okay, so there would be, they were called U.S. colored troops. That's what they called them back then. So they would be a separate regiment, a separate group of people. And here's the kind of the really weird part was, they were led by only white officers. So you have an all-black regiment being led by white officers. Blacks could not be commissioned officers until World War I, believe it or not. So if you ever play Battlefield 1, you play the Harlem Hellfighters campaign, okay? If you notice that all the officers are still white, okay? And all of the non-commissioned officers and privates, they're black. And the segregation in our U.S. Army is going to go up till, believe it or not, 1948. After World War II is when we finally integrate both colors in our military forces. Yes?
Have you ever seen that movie Glory?
Yeah, yeah.
With the, about how the freed slaves, they joined the Union
Right.
Army? It's really
Yeah,
good.
it's a great movie. Yeah, that's actually the first combat unit that goes in that are all African American. Yeah, that's a great movie. Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman,
Matthew Broderick.
Matthew Broderick. Yeah. Whenever I think of Matthew Broderick, though, that time I always think of him as like Ferris Bueller. All right, so we get Shiloh, and now we're going to go into the Mississippi River. And how do you take over the Mississippi River? Two parts. You take over the city of New Orleans, Drew Brees home, okay? And then you go up and you take the major city that is on a hook around the Mississippi known as Vicksburg. Like you to get this bolt down right here, middle one. From 1862 to 1863, the first major objective that is accomplished by the Anaconda Plan is Vicksburg. Ulysses S. Grant will have a 4-month operation, finally ending with a siege at Vicksburg. And on July 4th, 1863, we get the Mississippi River. Grant wins, and of all days, July 4th, Grant wins at Vicksburg. The day before that, and we haven't gotten there, we'll talk about that tomorrow. The day before that, does anyone know what major battle happened the day before? July 1st through 3rd, 1863. Anyone know? We haven't talked about it yet, so just Gettysburg, okay? So Gettysburg is won on the 3rd, Vicksburg is won on the 4th, and the United States at that moment is like, oh my gosh, we can actually win this, okay? So now the first major objective of the Anaconda Plan has been established and completed. We get the Mississippi. The blockade is now working around the Atlantic Ocean. What's the last big thing we gotta get? The last big one.
Richmond?
Richmond. Gotta capture Richmond, okay? Yes?
So what is that second bullet saying? Take 4 months, but on July 4th,
Oh,
they
oops.
win?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, they
My
surrender.
bad, my bad. Yeah, let me fix that. Try again. There you go. Much better. That was my fault. Good catch. Some major issues that are going on during Lincoln's first term is, remember, how long is a term of presidents? 4 years, right? So he actually, throughout the Civil War, he actually must do a re-election while this war is going on. That's going to be in 1864. Some of the major issues that he's going to have, get all 3 bullets, is keeping those border states. What were some of the border states between the Union and Confederate countries? What were some of those border states that stayed with the North but sent Confederate troops over? Anyone know any of them? Maryland's one. Good.
Delaware.
Delaware.
West Virginia?
West Virginia, which eventually goes full north. Yeah. They're actually going to separate from Virginia because of the Civil War. Good. Missing 2 more. St. Louis, Missouri, and then Louisville, Kentucky. Okay. So his biggest issue is trying to make sure that those states between the North and the South, that they do not leave. And that becomes a major problem. He actually has to arrest governors. He arrests the governor of Maryland, and he even arrests the mayor of Baltimore and holds him in prison until the end of the war. It's really kind of a sketchy thing he does there, but it's enough to keep those states within his country. In July of 1863, because of the losses of both Vicksburg and the victory of Gettysburg, Lincoln has to start a draft. Now, last time a military draft happened in our country was 1972. Okay, when you turn 18, you must enlist in the draft. That does not mean you're going to be drafted. That means you're now in the system that if a draft ever happened, you could then potentially be drafted, okay? And yes, you must do it, or else you can't have a job, go to college, get a loan, buy a car or a house. Basically, you have to do it, okay? Here's the catch though. Now, if you are over the age of 18, you are in the draft, okay?
Back then, it was 20 to 45, and if you were drafted, if you paid $300, you didn't have to go. Okay, $300 back then would be basically a year's salary in our eyes. Okay, so about $30,000. Question, Ethan?
That was gonna be.
Oh, okay, that's your question? Yeah. Yeah, and so basically rich people could get out of the draft, okay? Poor people are stuck in it. Question, huh?
If they had a draft like now, do you think there would be a fee where you could get out of it? Or
No, they actually have stopped that. It's not allowed to ever happen again. During World War II, if you didn't know, famous actors and famous sports stars were drafted in the World War II. The Cleveland Indians' great pitcher Bob Feller was drafted in World War II. Ted Williams was drafted into World War II in Korea. There's very stars were drafted. Even Elvis Presley was drafted. Believe it or not.
So they paid to get out of it?
No, they were actually. Elvis Presley was in the military after his career started
Really?
because of the Korean War. Yeah.
Did Ted who?
Ted Williams was a bomber pilot.
Really? So like
Yes.
during his baseball career?
In the middle of his baseball career, at his absolute prime, at the age of 25, he goes off and fights World War II. And that was actually after he gets out of World War II. His 1946 season is when he hit 400. And then, yeah, it's pretty crazy, right? Yeah. And then he then goes back into the military service between 49 and 51. Yeah. The thing here is this. If you're the U.S. military and you've drafted a celebrity or sports star, are you going to want to get them killed? No. So usually what happens is they put them in like an office or like a desk job. But some of these guys said, no, we want to be combat troops. Bob Feller was on a Navy destroyer. I mean, pretty impressive, yeah. So this is what New York City looked like during the draft riots. When the draft comes out, they decide you can't have a draft in the city if we burn down all the draft locations. So they burn down all the buildings, okay? Then they decide that the people they should blame for this draft is the black people. So they start burning down orphanages of colored people, burning down apartments and neighborhoods. They then start beating up people. And so people are just trying to get out of the way of this draft riot are now being beaten to death. Where's it at? It is, here we go. Part G of the city right there. They attack a colored orphanage, burn it to the ground, and hang the colored headmaster of the orphanage and light his body on fire. Okay? This has gone on for 3 days in New York City. It's an absolute disaster. The only place that they actually protect is the police barricade the rich part of the town. Okay? The rest of the city is literally just allowed to get this go on fire. The mob then decides, wouldn't it be fun, and they release all the circus animals of 10 circuses. So there's now lions and elephants roaming through the streets of New York City. I'm not joking, okay? And so on the third day, they actually had to send in U.S. troops to shoot down parts of the mob to bring the city back into order. New York City just went absolutely crazy. This also happens in Chicago. This also happens in a smaller level in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is basically only, this is weird, really weird. Philadelphia has a firefighters riot where they refuse to help people out with the fires because they didn't want to be drafted. This becomes a big disaster. Has anyone ever watched the movie Gangs of New York? Anyone? No? Okay. It happened. It was a movie in 2002. Probably not. At the end of the movie of Gangs of New York, if you're interested in this, in the movie Gangs of New York, they actually show what gang life was in the 1850s, 1860s of New York City. And at the very end of the movie, they actually show what happened with the draft riots. It's actually a pretty good movie. It has Leo DiCaprio after Titanic, and it has Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah, really good movie. All right, let me get this down. We're going to talk about this tomorrow, Gettysburg. Gettysburg is the last time the Confederacy is going to try to attack Northern Territory. Okay, the first time was Antietam. Second time was Gettysburg. 50,000 people are going to die in this 3-day battle. It is the bloodiest battle on American soil. One of the bloodiest battles in our U.S. history. And it becomes Lee's kind of great mistake. He makes this huge, huge blunder here.
How much time do we have left?
What's the questions? Huh? Oh, yeah, she said if I couldn't, find it, then, she'll
I
help.
think we're just gonna end it here. On here, guys. Did anyone try the link yesterday on that assignment? Did not work.
The short URL did not work.
Did not work. Okay. I'm gonna fix that right now, and then that way you can see it.
You guys 4 games up for the awards.
So it's 3 days.